This is about velocity and measure distance travel. So what measure distance travel? So do you see that we have a curve right over here where the horizontal axis stands for time in second, and the domain is t is between 0 and 14 seconds, and then the vertical axis stands for velocity, that is in feet per second, and then this is represented by a velocity function v of t. T is the independent variable. And then what about distance travel? I see the time, I see velocity, and don't forget that distance is equals to velocity times time. So let's say the velocity is 30 feet per second. Be aware the unit feet per second, and then you multiply 2 seconds. Do you see that the seconds got cancelled? So 30 times 2 is 60. 60 feet is the distance travel. So this one you grab at any point. So this is when time is equals to 1, the velocity is equals to 20, and then 1 second times 20 feet per second, the second got cancelled, so the distance travel is equals to 20. So the area under the curve in this graph represents the total distance travel in 14 seconds. All right, so our job is I want to measure the area under the curve, measure or estimate the area under the curve of each graph using left sum, right sum, and midpoint sum. So L for the L7, the left sum, I will be using 7 intervals. So let's do the math. So we have delta x equals to, oh, actually, you know what? Let's match the color code better. I'm just going to switch back to this orange. So we have delta x equals to the maximum x minus minimum x divided by how many intervals you want. We want 7 intervals, right? So intervals. And then each interval is 2 units long. So this is the width of each rectangle, and then you draw the length of each interval, and then this starts at 0 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, right? So look how easy it is. And then plus 2, we stop at 14, and then each interval is 2 units long, and you make sure you have 7 intervals. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we have 7 intervals, and then the left sum using 7 intervals. So that is the delta x, and then times. So left sum, what do we pick? We pick everything from left to right except the last value. So we will be picking the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then we do not pick the last one, because if you pick 14, you extend 2 units to the left, that is already out of the domain. All right, so we will be picking the first 7 x value. So let's get rid of the circle, otherwise that looks really messy. You know what? In fact, I will just do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is less messier compared to the highlighter. All right, back to business. So we have f of 0. We keep adding all the way to 12. So f of 2, f of 4, and then we have f of 6, and then f of 8, f of 10, and then f of 12. Do I have everybody? So 0, 2, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. And then that is equals to 2. And then how do we get the f of 0? So f of 0, you have to look at the graph. So this one, because there is no function, there is no table value, everything depends on the graph. So 0 is right over here. So you have a 0, and then you go 2 units to the right, and then that's it. So the height is equals to 0. And then f of 2, that is right here. The height is equals to 30, 2 units to the right. And then this is your rectangle. So that is the height is equals to 30. And then f of 4, so that is right over here. And then 2 units to the right. And then we line up with the 6. So that is 70, right? And then f of 6. So what is f of 6? So f of 6, we have that right over here. 2 units to the right. Then this one, the height is equals to 0. So the height is equals to 0. And then f of 8, 8 is also a 0. So 2 units to the right, that is a 0. And then f of 10, so 7, 0, and then followed by another 0. And then f of 10, is that a 0? Nope, f of 10 is right over here. 2 units to the right. Nope, this one we don't have a 0. How come that is not straight? So 10, and then 2 units to the right. What happened? Weird. 10 units to the right. And then there you go. So this one, the height is equals to 40. And then we keep adding. And then the next one is 12. So 12 is right over here. 2 units to the right. This is funny. The line, they don't go straight at all. And then line up with the 14, and then the height is equals to 20. So everything adds up. So add the numbers and then multiply by 2. The final answer is 320. This is the area under the curve, and then this is the distance traveled. So that is in feet. Because each of this number is in feet per second, right? Take a look. So each of this number is in feet per second. And then 2 is in second. So second times feet over second. And then the last unit, the final unit is in feet, 320 feet. That is the distance traveled. So this is the distance traveled. All right, so let's do the next one. The next one is right sum using 2 intervals. So we have a right sum using 2 intervals, and then what is the delta x? The delta x is the maximum x minus the minimum x divided by 2 equals to 7, and then 7 is the width of each interval. The graph, you have to look at this graph. The graph is fun. So we are going from right to left. So I'm going to draw the interval first. So we are doing this from right to left. So we have a 0, we have a 7, and then we have a 14. So since this is a right sum, we will go from right to left. We grab everything except the 0. So we will be doing R2, that is equals to delta x, and then times f of 14 plus f of 7. And then what is that equal to? You have to look at this graph. So 14 is right over here, and then you extend 7 units to the 7, to the right, to the left, sorry, to the left. And then what is the height? The height is equals to 0, because when x is equals to 14, y is equals to 0. So we have a 0. How about the next one? 7 also at 0. So you have this, you extend 7 units to the left, and then you have right over there. So we have 2 rectangles, and then they both have the height equals to 0. So this is also equals to 0, and then at the end of the day, the total distance traveled is 0 feet. So this is the total distance traveled, which is a really bad estimation, right? Because we just missed all of these values. All right, so it's at the end of the day, that is equals to 0. That's why I said you have to look at this graph. And then the last one, we will be doing what? We will be doing midpoint 2 interval. So we will be doing M2. And then the delta x is equals to, same thing, 14 minus 0 divided by 2 intervals. That is equals to 7, and then 7 is the width, and then we draw the same thing, right? Same as above. So we have a 0, we have a 7, and then we have a 14, but we have to figure out the midpoint. So the midpoint, what's the midpoint? 7 plus 0 divided by 2, this is a 3.5, and then add 7 to it, then this will be a 10.5. 10.5 and 3.5. Alrighty, so where is 3.5? So 3.5 looks like 3.5 is right over here, right? And then you extend 7 units to the 3, and then you go from 0 to 7. That is easier to say, yes. And then you go to 0, and then you go to a 7. There you go. This is your first rectangle. So this is a M2 equals to delta x, f of 3.5 plus f of 10.5. So this is a 7. And then 3.5, what do we have? We have 60. And then 10.5, do we have 60 as well? I don't think so. 10.5 is, no, that is not 60, that is a 50. And then we extend to a 14, extend to a 7, and then line up with the 14, and there you are. So that is 50. So this is 110 times 7, so that is 770. So this is in feet, and this is the total distance travel. All right. Okay, let's do, I want to do one more problem, and then we will end this video. So I'm looking for the area under the curve of this velocity function, a square root function, where t is between, so this one is a mistake, where t is between 0 and 30. So t is between 0 and 30. Let's just do the math, no graph, anything else. Okay, so for L5, so what is delta x? Delta x is equals to 30 minus 0 divided by 5, right? So that is equals to 6. And then we have what? We have L5, which is equals to 6 times what? We start at 0 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 and then plus 5, and then we have a 30. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 interval. And then how do we do the left sum? For left sum, we go from left to right. We grab everything except the 30. So we will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do not grab the 30. So we have f of 0. Actually, it's a v of 0, right? So v of 0 plus v of 5 plus v of 10, and then plus v of 15, and then plus v of 20, and then plus v of 25. So this one are v of 0, so you can take that as the square root of 0 equals to 0. The v of 5, you can get that the square root of 5, so that one is equals to, oh, you know what, it's a 6. It's a 6, it's not a 5. Okay, I'm sure that everybody is doing the right thing except me. So let's make a quick correction. All right, let's make a quick correction. So this is supposed to be 6, and then a plus 6, plus 6, plus 6, and then plus 6. Okay, and then this is, we ends at 30. And then we have 5 intervals. Okay, 5 intervals. And then this one we start at 30. So we have 5 intervals. So we have a 0, 6, 12, 18, 24, and then that's it. We erase the extra. We erase an extra, so the next one will be approximating the 6. So the square root of 6, this is around 2.45. You just plug it in and find the corresponding y value. So what is the result equals to? The result is equals to the total distance traveled. So we have 6, and then you write down each of these evaluations. So 0 plus 2.45 plus 3.46 plus 4.24 plus 4.90, and then the total distance travel is approximately equals to 90.3. It depends if the time is in second, and then the velocity is in feet per second, and then this is in feet. All right, and then the next one is R3. So this time, make sure I got this one right. So R3, we have delta x equals to maximum t minus minimum t divided by 3 intervals. So each interval is 10 units long. And then here is what we do. We go from 0 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. So right sum, we will go from right to left. We will take 1, 2, and 3 intervals from right to left. And then this one we have a R3, so we have a 6, and then a v of 30 plus v of 20 plus v of 10. So for each of these value, all you have to do is, so v of 30, that is the square root of 30, which is approximately equals to 5.48. So if you do all the numbers right, so this one I use 2 decimal places, I get around 78.66. I use 2 decimal places. And then what's the last one? The last one is M6, so we will be using 6 subintervals, midpoint. Follow the color code, so we have a M6 delta x, that is a 30 minus 0 divided by 6 interval. Each interval is 5 units long. And then this is what we do. We draw a straight line. 0 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 and then plus 5. So we have that. And then we are not done. We need to figure out the midpoint. So the midpoint, 0 plus 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. The rest is easy. You keep adding 5 to it. So plus 5, and then plus 5, plus 5, plus 5, and then plus 5. So you have all the midpoint, and the total is, you have 6 midpoints. And then you do your M6. So your M6 is equals to, and then you have 5 times v of 2.5 plus v of 7.5 plus velocity, time equals to 12.5, v of 17.5, and then v of 22.5, and then plus v of 27.5. And then let's do a sample evaluation. So when v is equals to 2.5, all you have to do is you take the square root of that, so that is equals to the square root of 2.5, so that is approximately equals to 1.58. I use 2 decimal places, so if you do the math right, the final answer I have around 110.1. And then this is the total distance traveled. So the total distance traveled. Why? Because the delta x is equals to 5, right? So this is for the x, so the x means that the base, right? So the base assuming the time unit is in second. And then what about the velocity? The velocity assuming the unit is in feet per second. So you have a feet per second times a second, because this is a delta x, right? And then this is everything in the square bracket, so that you will get a feet, which is the total distance traveled if the function is in velocity. And then either you get a curve, either you get a graph or you don't get a graph. The final answer, the total area under the graph represents the total distance traveled during that time interval, which is the domain. All right, so that is the end of this video. If you like the way I explain this math, give me a like, share, and subscribe. Truly appreciate your help, and I will see you all in the next one. Signing out.